his strength was his everything.
Yeah.
And like this, and so, he pulling the big old truck.
Evander Holyfield didn't just fight champions. He studied them, dissected their image.
Here comes the knockdown. Now, the knockdown is a surprise to, I think, everybody.
With a shot in the chest, Vertigo, hit him on the left, we're going to check, was it balanced?
Industry insiders claim that long before Holyfield became the real deal, he kept a mental list of the fighters who shaped everything he believed about boxing. And according to sources close to his inner circle, that list tells you more about Holyfield than any highlight reel ever could. 8 champions, 8 different lessons, 8 reasons why Evander Holyfield became one of the most complete fighters the sport has ever produced. The names on this list, they might just surprise you. 8. Joe Louis. Precision was the first language Evander Holyfield ever truly respected.
He come out of jail, and they make him rank number 2 or number 1.
And nobody spoke it cleaner than Joe Louis. Sources say that as a young amateur fighter in Atlanta, Holyfield would sit in front of grainy fight footage and watch Louis dismantle opponents with a calmness that almost seemed unfair. No wasted movement, no unnecessary theatrics, just surgical, suffocating pressure that made grown men collapse. Boxing historians confirm that Holyfield was particularly fascinated by the way Louis controlled distance, keeping opponents exactly where he wanted them before unloading combinations that looked effortless but landed like demolition equipment. Trainers who worked with Holyfield in his early professional years reportedly said he would reference Louis constantly, studying how the brown bomber turned patience into punishment. What Louis taught Holyfield, according to sources close to the camp, wasn't just technique. It was something deeper, the understanding that a truly great champion never rushes to destruction. He builds it, brick by brick, round by round, until his opponent has nowhere left to go. For Holyfield, Joe Louis wasn't just a historical figure. He was the original proof that controlled power will always outlast explosive chaos. 7. Sugar Ray Robinson. There is a saying inside old gymnasium walls that every serious boxer eventually discovers that Sugar Ray Robinson didn't just fight, he performed surgery.
They called it the St. Valentine's Day Mass.
Holyfield, according to sources who spent years inside his training camps, became almost obsessive about Robinson during his middleweight study years.
They didn't give him the decision. I said, but I'm the champ.
He didn't watch Robinson to copy him. He watched Robinson to understand what physical perfection actually looked like inside a boxing ring. What grabbed Holyfield specifically, industry insiders reveal, was Robinson's footwork. The way Robinson repositioned mid-combination, changing angles while punches were still traveling, left Holyfield genuinely humbled. Reportedly, Holyfield once told a trainer that watching Robinson move made him realize most fighters, including himself, were standing still without even knowing it. But the deepest lesson Robinson delivered had nothing to do with feet or hands. Sources close to Holyfield claimed he admired how Robinson carried an unshakable belief that he was the finest fighter alive. Not arrogance, but a quiet, immovable certainty that never cracked under pressure. For Holyfield, that mental foundation was Robinson's real championship. The fists were just the visible part of something much harder to defeat. 6. Rocky Marciano. Long before Evander Holyfield became the man who refused to stay down, there was another fighter who made relentlessness into a religion.
And uses his left jab to make Rocky miss with his right. Watch.
Rocky Marciano walked away from professional boxing with a perfect record: 49 fights, 49 wins, 0 defeats, and according to sources close to Holyfield's inner circle, that number haunted Holyfield in the best possible way. Not as pressure, as proof.
He did this, he did that. I said, look, hey, boxing is not all boxing.
Holyfield reportedly discovered Marciano during a period when people around him were questioning whether a cruiserweight could genuinely compete with true heavyweights. Industry insiders claim that Holyfield's response to those doubters was almost always the same. He would bring up Marciano, a fighter who stood barely 6 feet tall, outweighed nearly every serious opponent he ever faced, yet somehow found a way to make size completely irrelevant. Marciano didn't overcome his physical limitations. He made his opponents feel limited by theirs. What fascinated Holyfield most, boxing historians confirm, was Marciano's engine. The man simply never tired. Round after round, the pressure never dropped, the punches never softened, and the forward march never stopped. Sources say Holyfield used Marciano as his personal argument against anyone who believed conditioning had a ceiling. Marciano proved that if a fighter prepares his body like a machine and his mind like a fortress, fatigue becomes someone else's problem. But beyond the statistics and the stamina, sources close to Holyfield reveal there was something personal in this admiration. Holyfield saw his own comeback chapters written inside Marciano's story. The idea that a smaller, supposedly overmatched man could walk into the biggest rooms in the sport and leave undefeated. For Holyfield, Rocky Marciano wasn't just a heavyweight legend. He was permanent, living evidence that destiny bends toward the man who simply refuses to quit. 5. Archie Moore. Some fighters peak early and fade quietly. Archie Moore did the opposite.
The old champ kept on keeping on. By round 11, the spectators began to realize that Archie must be invincible.
He got better, stranger, and more dangerous with every passing year. And according to sources who studied Holyfield's reading habits inside the gym, Moore was the fighter Holyfield returned to again and again throughout his entire career.
Well, I wouldn't say he's the hardest puncher than Mike Tyson, but he hit me one time.
Not just once during his amateur days, repeatedly, obsessively, like a man searching for a secret hidden inside someone else's story. Moore's career numbers alone were enough to stop any serious student of the sport cold. Over 200 professional victories, knockouts recorded well into his 40s, a light heavyweight championship defended against men half his age with a consistency that defied every conventional belief about athletic decline. Industry insiders claim Holyfield found something almost spiritual in those numbers, confirming that the body follows wherever a truly disciplined mind decides to lead it. What sources close to Holyfield's camp reveal, however, goes beyond admiration for longevity. Moore possessed a technical sophistication that most casual fans completely missed beneath his knockout reputation. His shoulder roll defense, his angles, his ability to lure opponents into traps they didn't realize existed until the floor was already rising. Trainers who worked alongside Holyfield reportedly said he studied Moore's defensive genius as carefully as most fighters study offensive combinations. But the lesson Moore delivered that sat deepest with Holyfield, according to sources familiar with his private reflections, was about relevance. Moore refused to accept that age wrote the final word on a fighter's value. He competed, adapted, and dominated across multiple generations of opponents without ever apologizing for still being present. For Holyfield, a man who fought professionally well into his own 40s, Archie Moore wasn't just an inspiration. He was a permission slip to keep going. 4. Roberto Duran. Nobody walked into a boxing ring carrying more raw, unfiltered danger than Roberto Duran.
Duran has a real heavy beard. In most states, that's illegal. I'm surprised that...
Sources who were present during Holyfield's training camp discussions claim that whenever Duran's name entered the conversation, the room changed temperature. Not because of statistics or championship belts, but because everyone who understood boxing at its deepest level recognized that Duran represented something that couldn't be coached, manufactured, or replicated.
Well, I wouldn't say he's the hardest puncher than Mike Tyson, but he hit me one time.
Something that was simply born inside a man and sharpened by hunger. Holyfield allegedly told members of his inner circle that Duran was the most naturally threatening fighter he ever studied on film. Not the most skilled, not the most decorated, the most threatening. There is a critical difference, and sources say Holyfield understood it completely. Duran made opponents feel his presence before a single punch landed a psychological weight that settled over challengers during the walkout, during the stare down, during the opening bell, eating away at confidence before the real damage even began. Boxing historians confirm that Holyfield was particularly drawn to Duran's body attack, the way the Panamanian legend treated the torso like a separate opponent that needed breaking down independently. Reportedly, Holyfield incorporated that philosophy directly into his own approach, understanding that a fighter whose body is compromised early will find his legs betraying him in the championship rounds when everything matters most. But what sources close to Holyfield reveal as the deepest takeaway was about origin. Duran came from genuine poverty, genuine streets, genuine survival, and that background produced a competitive ferocity that comfortable upbringing simply cannot manufacture. Holyfield, who understood hardship personally, reportedly connected with that truth on a level beyond boxing admiration. For Holyfield, Roberto Duran was living confirmation that the fiercest champions are almost always forged somewhere difficult. 3. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali didn't wait for the opening bell to start winning.
Any other than this you can think of.
Sources close to Holyfield's training circle claim that what genuinely fascinated Holyfield about Ali had very little to do with the dancing footwork or the blinding hand speed that television cameras loved capturing. It was the press conference, the weigh-ins, the hotel lobbies, the moments before gloves were ever laced, where Ali was already dismantling opponents psychologically while they stood there smiling, convinced they weren't being taken apart. Industry insiders reveal that Holyfield studied Ali's mental warfare with the same seriousness most fighters reserve for studying combinations. The way Ali planted seeds of doubt inside an opponent's mind weeks before fight night, making them question their own preparation, their own readiness, their own right to share the same ring was, according to sources, something Holyfield considered a championship weapon entirely separate from physical ability. Trainers who worked alongside Holyfield reportedly confirmed that Ali's greatest fights weren't won on scorecards or by knockouts alone. They were won in the imagination of every man who climbed through the ropes, already half convinced that Ali was simply impossible to defeat. Holyfield absorbed that lesson completely. For Holyfield, Ali represented the fullest possible expression of what championship confidence looks like when it operates without ceiling or apology. The fists were extraordinary, but the mind behind them, sources say, was the most dangerous thing Ali ever carried into any arena. 2. Joe Frazier. Few relationships in boxing history carried the kind of unspoken mutual respect that existed between Evander Holyfield and Joe Frazier. Sources familiar with both camps reveal that the two men shared a genuine brotherhood built inside Philadelphia gymnasium culture, a world where reputations meant nothing until sweat and sacrifice proved them legitimate. Frazier never handed respect to anyone. He watched, evaluated, and decided privately, and reportedly, he decided early that Holyfield was the real thing. What Holyfield took from studying Frazier, according to industry insiders, was a masterclass in forward pressure married to genuine heart. Frazier's left hook was legendary, but boxing historians confirm that Holyfield was more captivated by what drove that hook, an absolute refusal to surrender emotional ground regardless of circumstances. Getting dropped, getting hurt, getting outboxed temporarily meant nothing to Frazier. He simply kept coming. Sources close to Holyfield claim he internalized that quality more deeply than any technical skill he ever developed. Championship rounds, championship moments, championship pressure. Frazier taught Holyfield that the fighter still moving forward when everything hurts is almost always the fighter who deserves to win. For Holyfield, Joe Frazier wasn't just a Philadelphia legend or an alley rival. He was the purest definition of heart that professional boxing has ever produced. 1. Sugar Ray Leonard. When Holyfield privately discussed the fighter who represented his personal blueprint for completeness, sources say the answer was never hesitant, never debated. Sugar Ray Leonard, a man who possessed hand speed that made trainers question their own eyes, ring intelligence that operated 3 exchanges ahead of every opponent, and a competitive switch that flipped from charming to absolutely ruthless the moment the stakes demanded it. Industry insiders claim Holyfield studied Leonard's combination work with genuine reverence, specifically the way Leonard disguised power shots inside blurring flurries, making opponents unable to distinguish the dangerous punch from the setup until damage was already registered. Boxing historians confirm that no fighter of Leonard's era combined elegance and destruction quite so seamlessly. But sources close to Holyfield reveal the deepest reason Leonard claimed this position. Leonard proved repeatedly that a supremely gifted fighter who also possessed championship heart was essentially unsolvable. Talent alone gets beaten. The heart alone gets worn down. Together, according to Holyfield, they produce something opponents simply have no answer for. For Holyfield, Sugar Ray Leonard wasn't just a favorite champion. He was the complete fighter, the standard everything else gets measured against. Holyfield's list reveals everything about the champion he chose to become. But now we want to hear from you. Who did he leave off? Drop your answer below, like this video, and subscribe for more legendary boxing countdowns.